Hello, my friends. Hello, my life warriors, wherever you are in the world. I do hope you're having a good day. Welcome to the Day In, Day Out podcast. Woo! Today on episode 162, I was very privileged to have Lars Henriks on the podcast. He is a indie filmmaker, actor, and podcaster. We talked about many things on the podcast today. Basically, the sort of difficulty of getting funding for projects, film projects when you're in Germany, how it's kind of a catch-22 situation if you haven't gone through a certain path. We also talked about, the sort of filmmaking process, and we also talked about his podcast. I have to say it was a very enjoyable conversation. I look forward to speaking to him again in the future. So please sit back, enjoy the show, and have a great day. Please don't forget to subscribe. It really does help the channel out. Have a good one, my friends, and enjoy the show. Peace. Hello, my friends. Hello, my life warriors. Wherever you are in the world, welcome to the Day In, Day Out podcast. Woo! Today on episode 162, I am very privileged to have Lars Henriks. He is a filmmaker, an indie filmmaker to be more precise, actor, and he is a podcaster. Got to say, he might be a little bit sick in the head when it comes to the whole podcasting thing. He's didn't do one, not two, but three. What's that about? Lars, how are you, sir? How are you doing?
I am very good. Thank you so much for having me, and thank you for that very kind introduction. How are you?
I'm good. You know what? Today the sun is shining. If you here in the UK, if it was 24 hours ago, it was like a monsoon in London. We had a month's rain in about 4 hours. Power went out in my flat. And basically, London was thrown into chaos. But what a difference a day makes.
Yeah, we have similar weather, not quite as extreme, but it changes between autumn and unbearably hot summer every 10 minutes. So
not put it this way. I have had the privilege of visiting Hamburg on a number of occasions. Had a good time there. Yes.
And have you ever seen the sun in Hamburg? I mean, it rarely visits.
Well, you know what? On the times I was here, I did see the sun, and I smiled. Yes, I was very grateful. But most of the time, it has been, how can I say, cloudy and overcast.
Yeah, as it should be.
Yeah, I have to ask now, how did you start your journey into becoming an indie filmmaker?
Oh, wow. That's a loaded question. Let me...
How is that loaded? It's just
no. It's just that I'm just going to give you such a long-winded answer now, and I just somehow have to make it your fault. I personally have always wanted to become a filmmaker. I don't know how that happened. Must have been a freak accident in my toddler brain. Like my parents say, my very first question when learning to speak was, "How can I make a movie?" And then it fell to my dad to find out the answers to that question all through my childhood. So there was never a doubt in my mind that was going to be what I was going to be doing. But when I had decided that, which was, I think, well before kindergarten even, I hadn't known about the peculiarities of the German film industry. Which is very, very tied to the state. All through Europe, we have these federal funding systems. In Germany, that is, that's a very tight situation. So basically, for example, there is this rule that you can only get federal funding if you have gotten federal funding before. That sounds a bit weird. The thing here is that we have state-run film schools.
Yeah.
And we have private film schools. And if you make your thesis film in a state-run film school, you get federal funding to make that thesis film. So if you come out of a federal film school, you will be then able to get federal funding. So to produce films inside the German film industry. But if you come from a private film school, you have no such opportunity, which isn't told you explicitly ever. It's not ideal, I was not a very good student, but to get into the state-run film schools, you have to score like really high marks, have really good grades, and I wasn't gonna. So I was told to I was told not to bother trying to get into a film school, but instead study acting, which I did. I don't regret that. I think it really helps me when directing, and I love acting. So I did that, and afterwards, as I've explained, for several reasons, there was no chance in hell for me to get into the proper film industry here in Germany. So right after acting school, I started together with like other acting students, with film students. We started making little independent films. At first, short films that were like kind of avant-garde, because I couldn't afford to make anything proper, and also I had no idea what I was doing. And then I was playing a leading role in an Australian teeny sitcom style show. So I was on set every day for a long time, and I I looked at the processes that were happening, and I thought, well, I can emulate this without any money, because if you don't get federal funding in Germany, there's really no other way to get a movie financed, like with a proper budget. So just because I did not have any other possibilities, I started then to make no budget indie films. But I started around 2010, when a major revolution in film technology was happening, actually. So it was it was an interesting time to be starting to do this. And by now, I think we have a tight running operation, and we're popping those indie films out left and right. So it worked out somehow.
Yeah, like this is the thing. Like when I know with like many European, like when it comes to the film like system, there is federal funding, but this is the first time I kind of heard of, if you go to private like film school, you're basically in this catch-22 where you can't actually take advantage of actual federal funding, not unless if you go to a federally funded school for your film like career, which to me is a little bit, how can I say, too bureaucratic for my liking, if you get what I mean.
I mean, in Germany, I don't know about other European countries. From my perspective, it seems to go a bit better in Britain, just judging by the films that do come out. In Germany, it's like the federal funding board is used a bit like a census board. Like you can't really get anything made without the federal funding. So there is a gremium of people working there who decide on what gets made and what doesn't, and they do make ideological decisions, and that's sort of murky. It's sort of unpleasant. But I mean, nobody forbids you from just going and taking your own money and making films. So we did that.
Yeah, no, but as you mentioned, with 2010 coming in, and there's sort of been a revolution. Look, all I've got to simply say is the world in 2010 to 2020, that sort of space in time, the change with like basically the access of film equipment, like basically like the whole standard went up. For the love of God, people have been doing films with their iPhones, and it has been released in the cinema. So it just gives you there is greater access, and there's a lot more freedom to produce the films you want. But like there must be sort of some great challenges still in there, while you have been able to take advantage of this new revolution in filmmaking.
I mean, of course, it's a pain. It would be nice to like be properly paid for all the work we put into that. Like when we make a movie, it's like half a year of working around the clock on this one thing, and then like producing is only the first hurdle. You can't really release these things in Germany because guess what? The festivals and the cinemas are also funded by the state, and you won't get into a German film festival if you haven't gotten federal funding. It's just not happening. It won't happen. Obviously there are exceptions that people can throw at me now, but that's just how it is in general. And I think it is important to talk about that candidly because thousands of people every year go to all kinds of private art schools in all over Germany. Those are all a scam, and all these people get scammed out of their money, and they won't work in the professional industry. So yeah. I sort of lost my train of thought there because
put it this way, I could see you were getting fired up.
Yeah. No. Yeah, of course. Sorry. I'm back on track now. Okay. So yeah, of course, there are thousands of challenges in no budget filmmaking. It's not ideal. You will not get like you won't get the exact locations you want. Shots will look worse than they could because of lighting issues. You will work with unexperienced people. You will be unexperienced yourself. Probably you will maybe not get the best actors in the world, but people who are also just beginning and really, yeah, I mean, get something out of working with you in your no budget operation. So there's so much pain there. But on the other hand, like yeah, starting in 2010, starting with these new great cameras, and then really taking off when Blackmagic started their whole stuff. There's just a new quality in the images and the sound too, that has never been there in this kind of really cheap independent film. Like even if you consider the American indies of the 90s, those are no budget. Like those people had $25,000, and then Harvey Weinstein gave them $75,000 or more for post-production after buying the stuff at Sundance. So and that's still an astronomical sum that you won't like some kid from some small village somewhere won't ever get that kind of money. But starting in 2010 and especially now, almost anyone can make a film that will be worth being exhibited in a cinema, or that will I don't know, that can entertain people on their laptops. Yeah. I don't think we've ever seen such an amount of really interesting and professional work coming from all kinds of places. Like in the US, of course, they are always the front runners with everything. In the US, they have this movement. People call it on YouTube. They call it folk filmmaking. I think Dan Lutz is a YouTuber who sort of coined that. So all over the US, like all over like Middle America. These small town kids make really professional, really interesting movies, and they just put them on YouTube for free, which is like all of that is new. Nothing like that would have been possible like even 15 years ago. The distribution is thoroughly in the hands of the artists. The means of production are too. Like there's a real democratization taking place worldwide. And I think, I am incredibly fascinating by waiting for unexpected films to pop out of really unexpected places.
Like, so do you see that? Like, I see this. You see it as a great like time to be around in filmmaking. Like, with regards to that and being in control of doing the films, being in control of like getting a crew together. But like with regards to the distribution, now you have had, is it 8? You've done 8 films, is that right? Or is it?
Yeah.
Okay. And like you mentioned, okay, yeah, basically getting on the German film like festival circuit is a bit of a pain if you haven't had German funding from the German Film Council. So how do you distribute your films? Is it through doing festivals, or do you have like just go onto YouTube, Vimeo, or is it by what means do you use?
Many of our films were on Amazon Prime until very recently. I'm actually not exactly sure about the reason why they're not anymore, because I'm not doing the distribution. We're working with companies, obviously not from Germany. Like there's a company in Los Angeles that does great work for independent films called Indie-Rights. Then there's a streaming service by a British festival, by the Derby Film Festival. They have some of our films. So there are streaming services where you can watch our movies. They're also getting a wide release now in the US on DVD and Blu-ray by SRS Cinema, which is it's all very exciting and awesome. But I must say, okay, so up until very recently, Amazon Prime is making changes right now. So up until very recently, you could get your film on Amazon Prime really easily, and then you could actually make some money. Realistically, not that much, but if you produce as cheaply as we do, so let's say you make a feature for around 5,000 to 7,000 euros, if you can pull that off, then you can actually make a slight profit, but you will never make a living with that.
Yeah.
I think that the music industry is actually the place to look to when thinking about the future of especially distribution of cinema. I know a guy, for example, who runs a very successful music label here in Hamburg. They make like they have like acts that do like new rave sort of music.
Okay.
And he told me he doesn't make his money selling music. He makes his money selling T-shirts. And I think I don't know about the business models of like gigantic mega conglomerates in Hollywood, like Marvel. Obviously, they make money in cinemas. I don't think that indie film, especially this new brand of highly professional but really really cheap, no budget indie film, that's not gonna, the money isn't gonna come from distribution, isn't gonna come from cinemas. I think there have to be other models that people are experimenting with. I think the classic T-shirt is actually is actually maybe a hopeful thing. Of course, there will be some money coming from distribution. We get money like when we work on a production. I mean, I do this full time now. Most of the money I make comes from these films. But like that's very very little. That's why we make so many of them. So I think that talking about indie films, the money won't be in distribution. That's not the future.
Yeah, no, because this is the thing. I think with regards to the music industry, when it comes to the whole streaming and basically the film industry, when it comes to the sort of streaming services, from what I observed, I could be completely wrong about this, but with the way they like with the music, most tracks now to be really successful on the streaming platform, it can only be around about 2 minutes. You can't have it more than that. If you do, it won't get picked up by playlists and it won't go forward with that. So it's like, I can understand why your friend says he makes more money selling T-shirts rather than actually the music, because look, if you own the music outright and you are popular enough, you will make enough money to get on by and be rather successful on these platforms. Not back in the sort of 90s or 80s or definitely the 70s, where like, yeah, you sold a record, you were looking like really popular, you would really hit it big. Now with movies, I can see this. There used to be a sort of small, like the small budget sort of feature films, which range from $5 million to around about $15 million, which has kind of gone goodbye. And now, with regards to many of these streaming platforms, rather than sort of making a feature film, which they do occasionally for that sort of $5 to $15 million, now they rather, because they want to have that retention, they'll put $5 to $15 million in like for an episode of a TV show. So basically, they have you coming back again and again and again for like maybe 10 episodes on like on Netflix. So it makes it very hard, I would imagine, for like anyone like yourself who's like trying to crank out films. And like I've got to say, I'm impressed you managed to get on to Amazon to get your like stuff distributed.
I think like on one hand, the whole streaming business, like I think right now we're still in a kind of Wild West phase concerning all these different streaming models. Like, of course, so Netflix seems to have found their formula. Like the Netflix show, the 10 episodes that you just binge through. It's just like a very long feature film. But they've just released these 3 features, Fear Street.
Yeah.
Which is a new kind of format, and it's fascinating to see. Also, when The End of the Fucking World came, I think that's by now that sort of fits a formula that they've done a couple of times. But when it came out, seeing a show consisting of 8 episodes that were all 20 minutes each, some of them shorter, that would never have been possible on TV. So there are these expectations from classical distributions, like from cinema, that is a feature film has to be like at least 80 minutes and not more than 2 hours preferably, and then from television you have to fill these time slots, which you don't have to do anymore. And that I think there's a lot of narrative potential in there that has never been freed before, and you can see the big platforms experimenting with that. You can also like there is, as I said, this folk filmmaking scene on YouTube, and a thing that I see coming up more and more there is like the micro feature, like films 45 minutes, 50 minutes. That's a format that has never been around. Like that hasn't happened before.
No, I disagree. Like if you go way back to who was it? Harold Lloyd, the young Sherlock. That is a 45-minute silent film. I have to say, it's a very good film.
Silent film. In that time, film was a kind of Wild West where everyone was figuring out everything. So maybe a similar situation.
Yeah. But like this is the thing with like this Wild West moment, like period in history, like which line do you think you might go down with, like the folk film, or do you think you'll actually sort of like look towards like the sort of streaming big boys with regards to getting your like films out there? Which one do you think you'll cater to?
Okay, so I've recently turned 30, which is relevant to my answer.
Hey man, look, you're looking good. You're looking good. Yeah.
Thank you so much. 10 years ago, when I started making longish shorts, trying to be something resembling avant-garde films by people like Christoph Schlingensief here in Germany. I was really, and then especially like 1 or 2 years later when I made my first feature, and I founded the Obsessive Underground Film Festival here in Hamburg. I was desperately looking for a wave of these things. For the Obsessive Underground Film Festival, we were looking for people all around the world who did the same thing, because we thought we actually were 4 filmmakers here in Hamburg, which was a big coincidence. There was like an actual proper Hamburg scene of this kind of film. Okay. So we thought there must be more of us. If there's this many of us here in Hamburg alone, there have to be more people. And I'm sure there were, but we didn't find them. And then I think it was this year on Letterboxd, I saw that someone had put all of my films into a Letterboxd list called folk filmmaking, and I encountered that term for the first time, and then I looked into it and had a look what that is, and then I learned that like I think starting last year there has a scene started to form. doing exactly what I wanted to do 10 years ago.
Yeah.
But I'm 10 years further. And like one thing that's very important to these guys is the free distribution thing, which I think makes perfect sense. I mean, actually, I have a trilogy of films, my Cthulhu trilogy, Lovecraftian comedy films, my very first 3 films. They are for free on YouTube right now. They won't be for long because there's a like a collector's edition coming up in the US too. So I'm gonna take them offline. So if you're listening to this when they're still online, go watch them. So there is a lot of merit to that, to just putting these films out on YouTube. It's just that we are 10 years further. I actually do have opportunities to do other stuff that will get paid better, and I like to live in a nice flat. So probably like I try to make a feature a year. So and I love making no budget stuff. So maybe I will pop out a film on YouTube on at some point, but that won't be my focus anytime soon. We're a bit like our films are on Amazon Prime, and they are getting released. They are getting wide releases. We are working with companies in different countries. And we won't stop that, and it's only the projects are only getting bigger. We've just made a series which is still not done. We're still working on the post-production, but that has eaten up like 3 years of my life. I'm not gonna put that on YouTube. People are gonna have to pay for that. I am sorry for being so old-fashioned in that regard, but I'm not part of the young rebels, even though I commend them and I have tremendous respect for them, and I wish they would have been around 10 years ago when I was doing that thing. But that was 10 years ago, and I'm not doing that anymore. Sadly, yeah, I missed my way.
Well, like, this is the thing. You think about it 10 years ago. Okay, look, it like if I said Casey Neistat to you, you most probably know who that is.
I actually don't. Who's that?
Casey Neistat. I'm surprised. Like, basically, he used to be a New York-based filmmaker. He predominantly on YouTube, but he does documentaries, has done feature films, and like now he lives in like LA. He did, how many days was it? He did his daily vlog for something like, I think almost 1,000 days. I might be a little bit out with that. But Casey Neistat, yeah, like he was like, I would say, if you see anyone who's like doing a vlog where like it comes up with like,
actually I know the face, I just didn't know the name.
Yeah. So basically, yeah, Casey Neistat, I would say he has been the sort of inspiration for a wealth of people who are looking to like get into film globally. And through the sort of YouTube movement, well, I'm going to call it a YouTube movement, on the sort of filmmaking side, that sort of spurred things on. And now I would simply say, with regards to yourself, like, it's like, yeah, you may have had this idea like 10 years ago, like, where are you guys? It was just a case of, in that sort of 10 years, like it just needed a couple of people to come through to help lead the way. And like, they're here now, and with a little bit more of an experienced hand in like, hey, Hamburg, you never know, you might be the shepherd to help like a greater movement come out of this.
I don't know if they need that, but like those guys are fantastic. I enjoy their stuff tremendously. Like, yeah, I don't know. We have been thinking about maybe reviving the film festival once that gets really possible here. So I really do want to get maybe more involved with that whole scene. And I mean, those are not. Those can't be the only ones, and I don't even think they are the most interesting ones. Like, for example, if you look at Wack Hollywood, you know those guys. Wack Hollywood?
No, I don't.
Okay, so there are people. Basically, they are from the Ugandan slums making action films, and that's mind blowing. How awesome is that? And that also is only possible because technology has become so very affordable.
Yeah.
And there are so many countries from which I've never heard a voice. I've never heard that there are so many peoples who I've never heard tell a story in the form of a film. It hasn't been possible before because the people who owned the means of production, especially in film, were the rich or the states. Which isn't the case anymore. And plus, even if there was such a thing, like I've recently ordered the book Mondo Macabro. It's about weird world cinema, and by Peter Toombs, and he writes about all these films that weren't available to anyone. The only source you had, even back in the 90s when that thing came out, was this book, and you would read about this weird film called Mystics in Bali. Now we have the internet. And you can actually get all these films from all these places, and all these people from I don't know where can just put their films on YouTube, for example, and then I can watch them and steal their best ideas, and I can't wait. I think there's such interesting potential in like. I want to see films made by people from places I haven't heard of before. And I can't wait for that to get bigger. It's probably going to be another 10 or 20 years, but I think that's the true potential in this whole technological revolution.
You know what? I think it might, like you say 10 or 20 years, I think it might actually be a little bit sooner than that. I would say 5 to 10. The only reason why I say this, it's because camera equipment has become... Okay, look, admit, like when I go, camera equipment's become more affordable. And when I'm saying you can most probably do a good, like use a camera, which costs anything from $2,000 to $5,000, or like go, and you could do a good, like get a good cinematic like vibe from that camera. People like go, buy like $2,000 to $5,000, that's quite expensive. I'm like, go, but if you're talking about a proper cinematic camera, that is like $50,000, like $50,000 and up. So you're talking, it's coming so sort of accessible for many a person, and the imagination is, I would say, the restriction of many a person. That's the only sort of restrictions I can see, but you say, you spend out 5,000 like euros to get your films done. And let's just say, if this was 10 years ago, 20 years ago, you must probably talking maybe 5 times that, maybe 10 times that.
We've done a feature film on 150 euros. I mean, of course, we did have the equipment, but it's a science fiction film. It's a lo-fi, of course. It's the sci-fi is all comedy, but it's a lo-fi sci-fi rom-com. It costs nothing. Like once you have the cameras, once you have the actors, and once you have the time, obviously, it's not expensive. And you can get, for example, a Blackmagic Cinema camera 2.5K. You can get that used for under 1,000 euros. You can get that used if you're lucky for like 500 euros. That's incredible. That thing does produce an image that is comparable to an Arri Alexa. Like no one who's not working with cameras will be able to tell the difference if the shot is properly lit.
Yeah.
So it's fantastic and it's incredible, and I'm very excited to see all the potential unlocked. And maybe that will be sooner. I can only hope so. A couple of years back, with that lo-fi sci-fi rom-com I just told you about, I was invited to the Saigon Underground Film Festival in Vietnam. I think that was 2016, 2017, something.
Mm-hmm.
And that was a bizarre experience. But when our film was,
how was it a bizarre experience?
Oh, for several reasons.
Now, so, I'm intrigued now.
Okay. So that film is called Leon Must Die, and it was the first time that we discovered Film Freeway, and we just applied to all these film festivals all over the world, and Leon Must Die got into many of them and won awards, and it was crazy. We'd never experienced that, and we were invited to Vietnam, to the UK, to the US, and I traveled to Vietnam on my own. and I went to Saigon. And yeah, it was I did a crowdfunding to get my ticket paid, because it was an underground film festival. Well, it was a poor festival. They weren't gonna pay my plane ticket, but I just thought, like, if my film is gonna be screened in Vietnam, I want to be there. So yeah, we had a little crowdfunding. I actually did get the money for my plane tickets, and then I traveled there. And and then the festival, like there was like an indoor tourist location where they had built like an indoor city for children to play in.
Okay, yeah.
And that location was the location of the film festival, which wasn't just a film festival, it was an art festival. And so it was actually awesome. Like for those 2 days, this very busy tourist location was full of street performers on the fake streets inside, who would paint interesting pictures, who would make music. It was really cool. It was really inspiring. There was just one problem. This thing had gotten a bit too big. The press had picked it up. There was press present. And Vietnam has very tight film censorship. And the film censorship costs money. And the people running the festival hadn't shown the censors the films. And now they got cold feet. I was there, and the filmmaker from Australia was there. We were the two who really traveled some distance to be there. And when I came, like, we were picked up from the airport. There were people showing us around in Saigon. They were really lovely. It was all really awesome until the festival proper started. And I came to that location. I was a bit weirded out, but also I thought it's funny. And then someone showed me where the films were screened. And that was like, I don't know the English word for this. The German word is Bällebad. Do you know these pools filled with colorful plastic balls?
Yeah, a ball pit.
A ball pit. That was where the films were screened. on a pop-up screen with a beamer and like a Bluetooth speaker, and we, like, me and the other filmmaker, we were like, what, this is what we traveled here for? Are you guys serious? You know we were coming. Yeah, we were very angry with the guy who ran the festival. And this indoor city had a theater. With like 200 seats and a proper screen and a proper sound system, and it was really cool. And then we asked, why aren't our films screened there? Then we got the whole censorship story. But yeah, we were just still very angry. So we were really a pain in the ass to the guy running the festival, who at some point caved in because there was a Vietnamese filmmaker. They told me, I don't know if this is true, they told me he's the #2 most famous Vietnamese director. So big shot. He came there, I don't know, he was interviewed there. And he was appalled by the film festival being in a ball pit. And with his help, we actually did get the guy to interview him in the theater and show our films in the theater. So he was interviewed. Theater was packed. It was really great. Then the Australian guy showed his film. It was a science fiction short, really awesome. Theater was still packed. People had fun. While his film was screened, the guy running the festival took me aside and said, we're not going to show your film. And I was like, okay, why? And he said, well, there's a sex scene in it, and it's kind of explicit, and there's children around and the press, and we didn't show this to the censors. So, no, that's a hard no. I can go to prison. And then I kind of exploded. And there are some benefits in yelling at people. Because they will then do what you want just to get you to stop yelling. So I screamed at the guy for a while. And then he said, okay, we're gonna show you a movie, but only if you get in front of the audience once the sex scene starts. You pause the film, you skip the sex scene, and then it goes on.
Okay.
So we did that. The sex scene is like 3 minutes or something, and I had some fun describing it in great detail. It was way more explicit than it was in the movie.
I could just see you there telling the story, looking at the censors in the eye. Man,
I didn't know who the censors were. I didn't even see the press. I didn't know anything. I just sort of described what was happening. But yeah, what I was originally gonna talk about was that afterwards there was a group of Vietnamese film students present, and they asked me about the production. They asked me about how to make a no budget feature film. And in that moment, I was ready to move to Vietnam and show these young people, because that is awesome. I want that to happen everywhere. I want people to go, well, how do we do this? And then go and make features.
Yeah.
Or serious projects, not just shorts. Make something big, something epic, and I want that to come from all kinds of places. And I hope those film students did go and make a no budget feature. I truly hope so.
There is that. Look, you got to look at it. There is an appetite for like people, like young people to do it, old people to do it, people in general to like make their own feature films. And like, you know what, if there was someone sort of like giving out not so much the secrets, oh excuse me, but sort of yeah, windy pops, can't help it. It's like sort of helping people by sort of like going, okay, this is what we do, and show some of the behind the scenes of how like low budget feature can be done and made, and like sort of like going through the sort of processes. I think there'll be a real appetite for that. I don't know if there is something like that on YouTube, because like
there is.
Yeah, because many of the times I sort of come across the creators when they are sort of talking about doing like videography or anything like this, it's done for more of not so much the professional like feature film side. It's more done with the sort of like, okay, this is how you make a cinematic like short video, or this is how you make a cinematic, sort of more like a commercial rather than
yeah,
you know.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think like there's so many tutorials on YouTube, and I think most of them you should take with a grain of salt. I don't know if you have ever experienced this a lot. Like a lot of the time I speak to people, especially it's so sad, but especially in the quote unquote indie scene, when I speak to people about I don't know how to approach a scene, or when people give me feedback on my films, I will see a video essay about some specific aspect of filmmaking trending on YouTube, and then I will hear 2 or 3 people right the next week tell me about that particular thing and how that is really important. Like, for example, there was this there is this video essay about how you should never have a white wall in the background of your shot. Like every wall should have some kind of color, because white and gray walls are boring. And then I had shot a scene in a hospital, and I am so sorry that hospitals look so boring, but they do.
It's a hospital.
And then people would tell me, yeah, but the thing is, you should never have a white wall in the background of the. And I was like, get out of here. Like, so yeah, take those with a grain of salt. But especially the folk filmmakers, they do have lots of behind the scenes material. They do talk about their process. And I guess just people can just go and watch as much as possible of that, and see how much value they do get out of it. But yeah, I haven't seen I think the most perfect no budget film school thing I've ever seen is actually the audio commentary that Robert Rodriguez did on El Mariachi. I mean, he also wrote the book, the Rebel Without a Crew book, which is cool. And if you read that and watch El Mariachi with his audio commentary, where he goes through his whole process, like he too, he has this thing where he always talks about how what he does looks expensive, how he makes his film look expensive, and I mean, I'm a bit annoyed by that, but there's a lot of no budget filmmaking wisdom that you can get out of there, I guess.
Yeah.
Plus, nothing beats experience on a real film set. I think if anyone wants to really make a big project on their own, and it is a huge amount of work, first maybe intern on a big film set or work on a big film set. What do I know about people's backgrounds? But I think you should have been on a really big film set, should have seen how it's run, to then go and emulate that. I think that's really valuable, and you won't get anything like that from a video essay or a book or anything.
Yeah, no, I hear you. Like, you know what, I do agree. Like, yeah, getting hands-on experience, seeing like what the process is, not not basically just from a YouTube lens. I think YouTube has its place, and I think it comes down to the person who's leading that sort of lesson predominantly, because yeah, there are some shysters out there, let's just say. But I would simply say, with regards to that, I would say people, like, what I don't think a lot of people do is sort of watch films which have come before them and really sort of like go, okay, oh, I've seen this shot in this film. How can I replicate that? Can I replicate that? Was it done with special effects? Was it down to like sort of specific lighting? And like sort of like going, okay, yes, what aspect of the film what of that particular scene made it look or captivated like their attention? I don't think there's a lot of that. I think there's a lot of just like there are some people which are just going out there and doing, which is good, but I don't think they've done the sort of fundamentals, like getting their fundamental skills down. And how do you find that?
Yeah, I think especially like when you again look at YouTube, I think there's an overemphasis on the technical aspect of filmmaking, which I get, it's important, and that's the thing that you can explain, I guess, most easily. But Donald Glover said this. He said people often come up to him and ask him with what kind of camera he did a specific thing. And he always thinks that kind of devalues his work, because you come up to me, you ask me what kind of camera I used. If you take the same camera that I used, you won't be able to do the same thing.
Yeah.
It's not the equipment that does the work. And I think that's a very, very valid statement. And exactly what you said, really looking at stuff and thinking about, okay, but what really makes this stand out? What really makes this story effective? I don't see storytelling discussed in that much detail, and I think that could really help. Storytelling and acting, those are two things that many indie films have their issue with. Like many of the newer ones really look fantastic. Like they have the color grading down, it's perfect. But yeah, now go and tell a story that is really worth telling. And of course, that's not so objective. But yeah, I think there's a lack in that. That's not discussed as frequently.
Like, I would. Do you think? Do you think people are sort of leading sort of seminars to help with storytelling, sort of getting that side of it down? Because look, the amount of sort of films which have gone by. Like, I'm not talking about most films today, because sometimes I look at a few films today and like go, it just leaves me with. For example, like when I looked at, say, The Usual Suspects for the first time, I was like, oh my God. Looked at Seven, it's like, oh my God. Like there are films which, you know what I mean, through the power of the story, it's like, right. And the combination of the acting is like, yeah, timeless classics. So it's so much harder these days. So do you think there are, like you say, people not looking at the storytelling and like sort of the acting side, they like color grades like absolute pro, but what if you had to sit a group down, what would you say, what aspects of storytelling would you focus on, would you say?
Okay, so speaking to a group specifically about no budget filmmaking, because that's where I really have my expertise. That's where I really can I can speak on that with some authority. So I think the very first thing to do if you want to make a no budget feature is look at what do you have available to you that doesn't cost you a thing that other people maybe don't have. Like those are things that you mostly don't realize that you have. Like maybe it's the house you live in. Maybe it looks striking. Maybe you have a really quiet place in the forest around the corner. Maybe the nature somewhere around your place of living looks striking to people from other places in the world. Who knows? Maybe you're a LARPer and you have lots of fantasy weapons. I don't know. But everyone has something that other people don't have that is visually striking. I think it's important that this must be a visual thing.
Yeah.
Because film is in the end it's a visual medium. So for example, I heard two filmmakers talk about I forgot where they're from, but in their area there is this thing that will sometimes occur where a whale is gets stranded at the beach.
Yeah.
And will die there and lie there for weeks until or days. I don't know. I didn't listen that closely, but lie there for a while before people get rid of it. Because it's huge. It's some work to get rid of it. So they thought, we will wait for the next time a whale strands here, and then we will shoot a film around that dead whale. And I mean, just imagine how that film looked to everybody else from every other area. Fantastic. How did they get a dead whale? So if you have anything like that, construct your story around that. Then the second question is actually, I think there should be a personal side to every story you tell. Especially when we're talking about indie filmmaking. You're not going to break the bank in the box office. It's what I look for in weird films, in indie films, and avant-garde films is like a personal connection to the people who made the piece of art. Like in every other art form, that's more immediate. Film, there is some barriers between you and the director, but I do prescribe to the auteur theory in that sense. I want to feel a personality. There are even filmmakers with who I do not agree with. Like I don't think I would enjoy a night out with Lars von Trier, but I will watch his next movie just because there's such a distinctive personality there, a personality that makes me angry, but it makes me feel things. So I think that's important. Like what is it like? First of all, what is it that you have available that other people don't have, and then what is it that you want to tell that other people don't know? What in your experience, in your own experience, like don't go and make a film about trans people if you have no experience with that. Go make films about your own story, like write what you know, basically. Yeah. I think that's important in different aspects of that are important. Like first of all, don't write other people's stories because this will probably be offensive somehow. And then I guess going by myself, I want to hear your story. I want to hear about your experiences. I want to feel the filmmaker when I watch the film. So make something unique. Then I don't like. That's why I said it annoyed me in Rodriguez. Please don't think about making it look expensive, making it look slick, making it be perfect by some weird standards that some guy on the internet made up. Tell your story the way it needs to be told. And then after all that is said, I would actually recommend a really classical approach. Go back to Joseph Campbell. Read Joseph Campbell, who came up with the hero's journey, like the monomythos. Do study myths from cultures all around the world. Read fairy tales. Get in that logic. Why do they work so well? What is it in your subconscious that they speak to? There's many books about screenwriting, and I think when approaching those, it's important to remember those are tools, not rules. You can use a beat sheet, but you don't have to. Most people don't. You can use whatever else screenwriting book writers recommend. But you don't have to. But read, I guess, as much of that as you can, because different approaches will help you figure out the approach that works for you. I can only recommend I always use as a template the hero's journey, not the one that Campbell laid out, even though I recommend reading all his works skeptically, but reading it. But Christopher Vogler, I think, he condensed the hero's journey down to like a 12-step thing. And I always work with that. I think that works with every story. You don't have to be slavish with that. You don't have to just adhere to everything. Like if it says darkest cave, your heroes don't have to go to a dark cave. That's you can interpret that, but going by it is for me, it's really helpful. Like I will most of the time have an idea of the atmosphere I want to conjure up, and of like I will most of the time have an idea of the tone I want the film to have. I have a tone and a motive. And then in the beginning I would get stuck. Would I not sit down, lay down the hero's journey, and then find something for every point? And after I did that, the story becomes clear to me. Before that, I could ramble about images and references, but after I sat down and broke it down into this basic structure, I know what the story is. So I think that's a very pleasurable experience too. That's another thing. Writing should be pleasurable. Like writing, you have to be self-motivated. You have to sit down and write, concentrate. And if that's not a thing you enjoy to do, then don't. Because if you don't enjoy writing it, then I probably won't enjoy reading it. There is written material out there. Just go film a classic play. Team up with a person who actually enjoys writing. Talent is interest. Like if you're not just passion. If you're truly interested in something, if you're kind of nerdy about something, I guess that means that you can excel in that. Like look at the greatest actors, people like Robert De Niro, or even like Robert Pattinson. These people in interviews, they will talk about their profession and their craft with some. They will really. They have ideas about that. When they approach a role, they have really gone through a process. And in our generation, I think the most obvious example of someone like that would be like Keith Stanfield, who's like apparently such a nerd in his craft, and you really see that translates. Not only is he brilliant, he's consistently getting better. Like and I think in writing too, in directing too, this should be something that fascinates you and that you think about all the time anyway, and then it will probably work out great. But like if you just want to direct, then don't go and write. Write if it's great. That would be all I could say on the spot.
No, well, no, I like it. Love it. Because like this is the thing. I think when it comes to like film or anything with the arts, I think there is a certain, like, when pushed to excellence, mastery of one's craft should be the sort of overall goal. Because like when someone goes, oh, you mean perfection? I'll be like, no, that's not what you want, because perfection is just a trap, a trick to sort of make you put things off. But when you go for mastery and to like basically improve and improve and improve, there is no end, there is no sort of limit to what you could possibly achieve with regards to that.
Yeah, you're so right. Like you're talking about something. I don't know if that's the same in English-speaking countries. Like in Germany, I encounter people all the time who tell me, "Yeah, let's do this, but let's do it professionally." And what they mean is, let's not do this. It's at some point I wanted to print T-shirts that say professionalism is for amateurs, because for example, we will go out and shoot a film, and then we tour cinemas, we do go to film festivals internationally, people do see these films, so people will come up to me and want to be part of it, and maybe say something like, yeah, but I'm a really professional producer, and I know how to do this professionally. And I say, and I always think, I've done this for 10 years, and the stuff I say, I know the stuff I'm talking about, but you go ahead. And then they will, for example, go and make a really professional pitch deck, and they will take a year for that. And I would have made the movie in that time. And then that will go nowhere. Like, people get so hung up on meaningless details. Of course, a great pitch deck is awesome. But always look at the proportionality. Like, you don't need a great Netflix-worthy pitch deck for a personal indie film that has no mainstream potential whatsoever. So yeah, exactly what you said. I think with perfectionism, all of that stuff that's just holding people back. Just go. I think that it's so terrible to say that, because you sound like a Nike commercial, but yeah, just go do it. And you will probably fail the first couple of times. I like when directors put out their very first no budget efforts. Like on the El Mariachi DVD. El Mariachi is not a perfect film by any stretch of the term. And on that are some short films that Rodriguez has made. And the inspirational thing about that is how imperfect they are. Like, my first 3 features are on YouTube. Even though I get a bit embarrassed about them at some points. I'm also very proud of them. I've just watched them again to do the audio commentary for the wide release, and I'm really proud of what we've achieved. But you can see the seams. They are there. And I think the value in that, especially for people who want to make film or want to understand film, is that you kind of can see how this sausage gets made. And if anyone looks at them and thinks, I can do better than that, and goes and does, then I have achieved a great thing by making the film.
Yeah, no. Yeah, if they can, yeah, by all means. But like this, like the whole thing is, like, if someone goes, I can do better than that. Well, if they haven't done a film or done anything, you kind of like go, okay, go ahead. Let's see if they do it once and it's better, okay, fine. If they do it twice and it's better, okay, fine. But more times than not, it doesn't work out that way. Look, you've got to go through the journey. You've got to go through the process. Anyone who goes, there isn't a journey, there isn't a process, it's a case of, look, there is no master swordsman, there is no master calligrapher, there is no master anything without being an amateur first, without being a beginner. And with that sort of development, that sort of gaining that experience, yeah, because dear me, look, I would simply say this, like, yeah, your first 3 features in comparison to like what you do today, it's most probably okay. Your first 3 most probably took 3 times as long. You made like countless mistakes, and you just like going, okay, yeah, you might look at some of it and go, oh, that's embarrassing. But you learned a hell of a lot through that sort of process in the beginning, you know?
Yeah, exactly. Like, I think there's always a balance between being self-critical enough to see your sort of mistakes and learn from them, and also appreciating the piece of art that you've made, and appreciating the things that did work. Like on both sides, I see people like some are completely blind to the flaws of the terrible piece of shit film they've made. Like, I mean, the most famous example is, of course, The Room. And I can see how that happens. Like when you sit down and you write a story and you envision a thing, and then it's a reality. there can be such enthusiasm in that you completely overlook all the flaws because you're just so happy. It's there. It's what I've written. It's on the screen. It's awesome. It's probably not that awesome. But on the other hand, you can also it can also happen that you look at the thing you've made and you say, well, that's not what it looked like in my head. That's terrible. That's embarrassing. And then you sort of get into this whole dark thing of being really down on yourself and down on what you've made. And it's probably not that terrible either, unless you've made The Room. But yeah,
just always bashing the room. The room. the room.
I mean, it's obviously not the worst film of all time, but it's just the most famous example.
What would you say is the worst film of all time that you've watched?
I know. I sadly know the answer to this one. I hate this because the worst films of all times are usually independent passion projects, and I don't want to bash people's independent passion projects. So I know what the worst film that I've ever watched is, but I'm trying to think of some film by like a real piece of shit who I can bash without feeling bad about it. Whatever. It's the film Violent Shit. It's a German film. This is an interesting thing. There has been a German independent film wave in the early to mid 90s, starting I think in the late 80s, because similar to the video nasties, we had also like in that era we had like strict film censorship. You could I think there are still films out there that you can actually go to jail for possessing them or selling them or something. Films were strictly banned here in Germany, and not only the most brutal ones, like obviously everything from Italy, and everything from Asia, but also American classics like Night of the Living Dead was banned, strictly banned here in Germany. But there was also this hunger for violence in movies, for horror films, because I don't know, people would read about them in magazines. I mean, the internet wasn't there yet, so they wouldn't have seen the films, but they would have read Fangoria or something like that, and they have seen those images, and there was no way for them to get their hands on these films. I mean, there were illegal bootleg tapes that were circulating, but all of that was really holy. Like even when I started to get interested in horror films, like file sharing was very new, and it took 2 weeks to download a film. but tracking down these forbidden fruits, terrible movies, most of them, by the way. But tracking them down was like the hunt for something holy. So there was this scene of people who wanted to see these films, they couldn't import them, so they started making them. Back then, camcorders were around where you would put VHS in, and one of them actually graduated to making special effects for Uwe Boll's Hollywood productions. So there was this whole scene, and they called themselves the amateur splatter scene, and it's the whole thing in Germany. There's tons of movies. It's basically it's the splatter equivalent to porn. There's mostly no story, but
gory death,
gratuitous and violent scenes. These films are terrible, but they were very inspirational for me as a kid, because I thought, I can do that. That looks easy. That was my first when I tried to make a feature for the first time. I tried to emulate those guys. There's one of those films is called Violent Shit. It's one of the classics of the scene. It has been screened like in underground cinemas in New York even. It's a trilogy. The budget gets higher with everyone, and it's like the guy made this film together with his dad, and a considerable amount of the screen time consists of the killer of the film cutting off boobs or cutting out vaginas. And I just imagine this guy and his dad filming these scenes, like preparing these special effects. It's Yeah, it's weird, and the film is terrible. Like it's just an hour, but it's so slow and so bad, and there's nothing good there. So don't watch that. The third part is better.
Okay, I could just see the wife and the mother of this looking at him, them both doing this like I need to leave.
Yeah.
just get up, just like yeah, going.
Yeah. I once toyed with the idea of like pitching a series based on these people, because like all of them are so interesting. Like there was this guy, and this is the most important most famous one, Olaf Ittenbach. He was in this tiny secluded village in Bavaria, and his whole village would be in these films that he made, these incredibly gory films. And in the end of the film, like he has several movies made when he was young. Like he started as a teenager, and he made these films, and they would end with these sequences in hell, like obviously inspired by Dante's Inferno. And part of those scenes would, for example, be him nailing his penis to a piece of wood, and like his parents were in those films. His whole village was in that film, and I just think there's a fascinating little story to tell there. And then you look at this guy and his dad making this wildly misogynistic, violent fantasy, and there's just a lot to unpack, and I think there's comedic potential. So at one point I thought, let's make a series about these people, but then I thought, well, who would watch that? What would be the network for that? Because that's a very specifically German thing, and there is not a network in Germany that you could do this with. So let's not. But like a documentary, do you know that documentary, Not Quite Hollywood, about Australian exploitation films?
No, I do not.
That's amazing, actually. Like Tarantino is in it, and they're all talking about these actually great Australian like horror and action films that were a thing, I guess, in the 80s. But a documentary like that, a documentary about that whole scene, and interviewing people who were there and showing clips from their movies. Like that's a standard way of making a documentary about a especially exploitation film scene. Like there are documentaries like that about Roger Corman, or about the Turkish whatever you want to call those films, like something like that about the German amateur splatter scene. I think would be great. It's a treasure trove of fun. That one.
Well, you know what? All I've got to simply say is, yeah, that guy. I think there's a hefty psychological like bill for him right there. Therapy, just like lots of therapy, and take these pills in the morning and in the
I think he runs a video store here in Hamburg. I don't know if they are still open, but I think he runs one. I never dared to go there because it's like I don't think I want to meet you.
It's like, you're not my hero. I'm just like, come into the video shop. No. It's like, that's just one like a cat from the internet. No. Oh, that is deserving and fantastic, all in the same breath. Got to say, oh my Lord, don't even know what to say after that. But like, so to just move away from that disturbing story.
I'm so sorry.
Yeah, no worries. I can just see some distraught listener right now going, what did I hear?
That's just Germany, you guys. I'm sorry.
Oh no, nothing to be sorry for. So how did you get into the podcasting game?
Oh wow. I did a while ago. I think in 2015. It just seemed like something that I could do easily. I love talking about films. I started listening to podcasts. I liked what I was hearing. I am I am by now exclusively listening to English language podcasts. And back then, a lot of that was, and I guess still is, happening on YouTube too. There will be these podcasts where people talk for a very long time, very in depth about films. And I guess by now there are German podcasts like that too, and probably there were back then too. But the way people talk about this stuff in Germany is different. Like we as a culture have a sort of different approach to film than most of the rest of the world. Like film isn't really considered an art form in Germany. It's trash. So people will throw around the word trash for anything that's genre or even avant-garde. Like people will call Jodorowsky films trash. So I never could really identify with that. When I was on set of my Australian sitcom, I think in 2012 that started, I talked to Australian colleagues, like even working in the German film industry. I haven't really met a person who loved film the way English language film enthusiasts seem to do. Like, of course, like one or two people, but it's really seldom in Germany. And like the kinds of conversations I would have with Australian colleagues about film, that was a first for me, and it was so great to finally be able to share this passion in this way. Like in Germany, we also see every movie dubbed, so I think most Germans have a really different experience with films than non-Germans, and then I have, because I don't watch stuff dubbed. So yeah, I thought that kind of thing that doesn't really nobody really does it in German the way I think it could and should be done. So I thought I'll do that. I mean, I was also inspired by some German comedy podcasts. There are great ones, like more political ones, which I really enjoyed back then. And I just thought, let's try this. And there were people who liked it, so I kept doing it. I also thought this is a great outlet for me to promote my films, and all of that. So I did that, like starting in 2015. I produced a ton of podcasts in German. Then I paused for like half a year, and then I made another German podcast, and then a friend of mine started his regular podcast, and I became a contributor there. And so podcasting just sort of became a thing that we did. And yeah, then this year we decided to switch to English, because not only does no one really do the kind of thing I want to hear in German, but nobody really wants to listen to it. Like, there are a few people, but there's just so many more people who listen to, like, we started this English language podcast called Mysterium Pictorum. We started early this year. We just recorded our 22nd episode. We're talking about really obscure films. That's the whole story too. I've once found in a very mysterious location, I found a USB stick that contained almost 300 films, and we're going through them in alphabetical order and discussing them. And I don't know, people are listening in all kinds of countries and writing us stuff, and it's such a different experience. Just to talk to an English-speaking audience. So we started that this year. My podcast is narcissistically called the Lars Henriks Podcast International, because that's my name. And then the show is Mysterium Pictorum, and it gets released there on that channel. Yeah.
Oh, brilliant. Like, this is the thing with like podcasting. I just love the way you can just do your own show. Regardless. Yeah, you don't have any sort of like, well, you control what time, length, what it's about, how it's like, how to sort of get your message across, or like basically your passion across. It's just freeing. And like for you, like when you talk about it, like, look, you, how can I say, you are a very sort of passionate speaking person, and I could imagine if, like, especially when it comes to film, if you can't talk to someone with that sort of air of passion, that air of feeling, you can get, I imagine you most of you could get frustrated quite quickly to a point where it's like, yeah, come on. Why don't you get it? Why don't you understand how this should, like, you know what I mean, touch or move you. So having that sort of experience, like having the ability now to talk to people who will be able to share that passion must be quite freeing, liberating, as they say.
It's amazing. And I mean also just also talking to other people who have podcasts, like as you said, anyone can make a podcast about their own passion. You can type in on iTunes or wherever you get your podcast. You can type in the most obscure things, and someone will have made a podcast about that, and that's awesome. And you can actually get in touch with those people. Most of them are on Twitter, or you can actually go and talk to those people and reach out and say, well, you like I don't know, you like yellow snails. I like yellow snails too. Let's make a podcast about them together. That's amazing. It's just a really, really cool medium that I am just exploring properly. I think just in the since lockdown started, I've again gotten into it in a real way, I guess. Like we last year, me and my girlfriend, who's actually also my filmmaking partner, we make all of our films like together as a team. Like I write and direct, she edits. She's an actress, she's in most of them. So we started making a podcast in German. We came up with a game. The game is called Pitchcock. In that game, you draw 3 cards. There are 3 categories: genre, topic, and format. So genre can be obviously anything: horror, western, science fiction, stuff like that. Then topic, obviously that's a free for all. We try to keep the topics not too dark because and then there's format, by which we mean like the obvious stuff, like feature film, series, web series. There can also be like social media channel or amusement park. Now, good luck pitching a horror amusement park about toddlers. But that's the game.
Go dark class.
Yeah, but yeah, that's the game. And then like 4 people play, and always 2 people will come up with a pitch spontaneously, and they have 3 minutes to pitch. And then the other 2 people say who was better, and the winner gets a point. And then in the end, someone will have won the round. And we did that, and that was so much fun. But it was in German. I think we're gonna revive that in English at some point. But there was a point when I was during lockdown when I found myself making and especially editing so many podcast formats. Like I also last year I read unfilmed scripts of mine on my podcast, which was a ton of work. Then we had this the Pitchcock podcast. Then we started Mysterium Pictorum, and so I just had to scale it down and settle for the one that had the most place, and that was the English language one. So that's the only thing we're doing right now. But hopefully we're gonna play some Pitchcock at some point again, because that's a really fun game.
Excellent, fantastic. You know what? I don't think I wouldn't mind playing that game myself at some point.
Yeah.
Hey.
You should.
Yeah, indeed. Like, so now, do you have a plan, or do you have a vision of what things are going to be like for you in the next 18 months, maybe 5 years? Is there like a big plan for you out there, or are you playing by ear?
We made a feature last year in December during the strictest sort of lockdown we had in Germany, and we were adhering to all the rules and restrictions, but we still managed to make a feature film in our flat with just 3 actors, and that's called. I mean. It's kind of based on the Metamorphoses by Ovid, the Latin mythology collection, like ancient collection of all these mostly Greek tales. And I mean, the guy is called Ovid. So our film is called COVID Metamorphoses. And it's set during lockdown over Christmas, and it's retelling and intertwining some of the tales, some of the most famous tales from the Metamorphoses. Yeah, it kind of starts out pretending to be a rom-com, but it's actually a kind of sort of fantasy, maybe almost horror, but mostly comedy. So it's a weird one. But I think it has turned out great. So we will release that sometime near Christmas. Then there's the show that I've kind of talked about. It's called F60 Kamikaze. We've made that show took 10 years of my life. I will die really early because I made that show. It was honestly a terrible experience, but it was all worth it because the show is awesome. I've just seen the first rough cut, and I was never proud of anything I've done. It's a really big project. We've worked on it like for 3.5 years. We're not done now, but it will be done this year, and we will release it, and that will be a big thing in the next like 12 to 18 months. That we will be promoting that like crazy. Then I do want to make a feature a year. I haven't made one this year, so I guess that's something that's on the list. I want to as soon as possible. Like right now, we are staging a performance. We're staging a production of Antigone. I'm directing like an open air theater in our park. There's like a beautiful, huge open air stage, and Hamburg has this whole thing about like the culture summer. There will be like a music festival, and we will stage this theater production there. Then we actually have an immersive theater experience in the park surrounding it, which we're also doing. So times are a bit hectic right now. We're working on that, and that will be in August.
Is that the park with the big lake?
Yeah, exactly. You've been here. Yeah, exactly. That park, and there's like a huge open air stage, and it's fantastic. We're doing that, and we're probably going to be doing more of that. I want to get into a situation where we have a studio, and I think that is close. I just want like one room, as cheap as possible, where we can just shoot stuff. Like during the 2020 lockdown, when like in spring 2020, a friend of mine who is like working in a hospital told us that like, yeah, don't listen to people talking about this lasting for like 3 months or something. This will be a thing for years. And I thought, okay, we're not going to be able to produce anything for like such a long time. And at some point I thought, if we had a room to do this in, we could. And I want that. I want like a studio. Like we made a horror feature, a satirical horror film called Performaniacs, and we shot that in one room owned by an acting school. And we dressed up that room all the time, and it was exhausting making all the sets because we do everything ourselves. But it was also awesome to have like full control over the shooting location.
Yeah.
The same thing applied when we were shooting in our own flat, which was exhausting for different reasons. Because once the shooting day is done, you want to lie down and sleep, but it's hard to compliment people out of your door if they want to have like a beer after work, which is perfectly understandable. But it kind of can get really stressful when it's in your own flat and there's no escaping anything. So yeah, I want a room where we can shoot stuff. So yeah, I want to do this very, very regularly. I also want to get into producing audio drama. We are making plans for that. And I know this is just a lot, but then there is a really big film project that I cannot believe has recently become a possibility. It's something I have dreamt of for 15 years. And I can't talk about it because I will jinx it, and it's still up in the air. But yeah, that will be. It looks like that's coming up, and that will be mind blowing. Like if it happens, maybe it won't. But I mean, I've talked about so much other stuff. I guess that's enough for 18 months. I hope to get all of that done this year, but let's be realistic.
Wow.
Yeah,
Lars,
but like in the long run, like when we're talking about 5 years, we really do want to get out of Germany, because like I try not to talk about Germany too much because I sound very, very bitter. But there's just a lot of stuff here that I am incredibly annoyed with, and I think I have for 10 years hit a brick wall. Like all the success we had was overseas. Like it's American and British companies that put out our movies. Germans don't talk to us. It's American and British festivals, even like bigger ones like the Derby Film Festival or the Para Cinema Weekend, where actually people from the industry travel to watch things that they're gonna then buy, which happened with a film of ours with Bear Kittens. Like it was screened in Derby at the Para Cinema Weekend, and Ron from SRS Cinema was there and then contacted us about putting it out. So now we are in business with him. So all the good things that ever happened surrounding our movies happened not in Germany. And lots of bad things happened, especially surrounding the series F-60 Kamikaze. Like that was just like stuff happened that you wouldn't believe. And yeah, I'm incredibly frustrated, not only with the industry here, but also with like everything else surrounding making films. And yeah, I do need to get out. That's the thing for the next 5 years.
Mm. Yeah, like I think it's always difficult when you're in an environment which is restrictive rather than supportive. Like with regards to anything when it comes to creative, be it like work or whatever you decide to turn your hand at. But like this is the thing, like Lars, you are a man on the move. Like, yeah, you are quite non-stop, it would seem, at this present time, which is a good thing. It's a good thing. And look, I would simply say this to you, like, yeah, if you could build a small following or anything like that, I think you can, well, you're doing great things already, but I think it might open up sort of the avenue to like do something even more like epic, or just give you a little like some more opportunities. It's just like I would say, yeah, you've got a strategy in mind. It's just a case of like executing it. I don't know the sort of finer details of what your plans might be, but it seems like you've got definitely a plan brewing in your head to sort of get your studio and to basically get a number of other things on the go.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I mean, actually, this year, and it's so funny, since I've turned 30, things started to actually work. Like we got funding to make theater, which was bizarre to me because I've tried to get film funding for 10 years and it was awful. Then when we tried to get funding for theater and it suddenly works. Then this thing I have sort of hinted at that I cannot talk about, that was a thing too where I thought, what, this just worked? That's so weird. And it's also since and this has been maybe that's even like a lockdown effect. We've really sat down and thought about what do we want to do, because we were very frustrated with how the production of F-60 Kamikaze had gone, and we have completely shifted our focus, like completely out of Germany. We're not doing anything here anymore. We're not communicating with like I just before lockdown hit, I was planning to go on a tour. Screening our films and sort of giving like little comedic intros to them, much like Kevin Smith would do. And I had some dates booked. I was about to go on that tour, and then everything happened. But yeah, we're not wasting any energy into that anymore. And that has just opened so many doors. Like the podcasting thing is another another so obvious thing, we've produced the Pitchcock show, which was a load of work for a while, and been very frustrated with how little feedback and how little plays there were. Then we start making Mysterium Pictorum just for fun, just because we love watching these movies and we like talking about them. And there's so many more reactions, there's so many more plays, it's so much more rewarding. So yeah, that has been so great. That we stopped thinking in terms of what can we do in Germany in our immediate surroundings, and just realized, well, actually everything we ever could do was in other places. So since we have started concentrating on that, things seem very possible and very positive. It's amazing.
You know what this says to me, Lars? And I think this is where you most really fulfill your true potential. Think bigger.
Yeah.
That's what
probably.
That's all it says to me. But like, okay, Lars, can you tell the lovely people how they can get hold of you on the webs? I'm sorry, but I have to cut it short.
Sure. Sorry for going on so long.
No, Lars, no. You're a rich vein of knowledge, and yes, I will be returning.
You're too kind. You're too kind. Okay. I have a blog. Go to www.larshenriks.de, and there's everything. I post every podcast episode we do on that blog. Go to the Lars Henriks Podcast International. You will find Mysterium Pictorum there. On my website, you will find links to all the movies I've made. So if you want to watch them, go do that. Also, I am on TikTok because that's a load of fun.
I did see your literal like series on TikTok, which you're starting out to do.
So look at what we're doing there. I am right now actually trying to document the work on the theater project we're doing. I started out doing it daily, but then it sort of got monotonous. So I will post weekly updates, whatever. I will post like TikTok. TikTok is the Wild West. Like TikTok is incredibly creative. Like people come up with interesting stuff there all the time. I think for filmmakers, it's a fun place to be, even if you just lurk around and watch stuff by other people. Like there's a lot more to discover there than just silly dances. I also just rejoined Twitter, but felt cute might delete later. I kind of don't like Twitter, but I'm on Twitter right now at Henriks Lars. And that's it.
Perfect. Lars, it is a pleasure to speak to you today, sir. You have been a joy, a pleasure. Thank you for coming on to the podcast today.
Thank you so much for having me. This was a lot of fun. Thank you. It was really great.
Thank you. And let me say thank you to you, my friends, my life warriors, for listening to this point. Please stay safe, stay well, be awesome, be fantastic, be all the positive bees you can be in this world, and then some. Have a great day, guys. Yes. Peace. And we are